Hey, David.
You hear me? Is it working?
Turn it on. Turn it up.
There.
There you go.
I'm David Pender, and I'm kind of a rookie myself, but I do have a couple of big tanks, and I was going to talk about the importance of reactors. If you got especially if you got a good sized tank, you really need reactors to help you keep things in balance. And I know I had the hardest time keeping SPS for a long time until I got phosphate reactors. So it's phosphate reactors. There's all different kinds, but you need a phosphate reactor, and that keeps your phosphate down. But you need to get one. Be sure to get one big enough for your tank too. I've seen a lot of people say, "Well, I've got a phosphate reactor and I still have problems." Well, you need to get one that's big enough. I've got a picture here. I'll pass right. You can start on this end, I guess. I don't have slides, but there's everybody should have a nitrate reactor on your tank. The two most important things on your tank to me is your lighting and your nitrate reactor. If you don't have a nitrate reactor, you might get by with it on your fish, but if you want SPS or anything like that, that's I also have a calcium reactor. There again, if you're going to do SPS tank, you're going to keep your DKH to where it's really stable. If you don't keep it stable, your corals are going to look sick all the time. There again. And one more is I have a nitrate reactor. So it's my tanks are fairly new, so I don't have that much problem with nitrates either. But when I did have an older tank, they work out. They're really nice to have a nitrate reactor and keep your nitrates down. So, anybody got any questions?
When you said that you got a phosphate reactor,
Yes.
what kind of medium are you using?
Well, I use from which supply the GFO from bulk resupply. I think some people like the big pellets, but I use the smaller pellets because I think it's just all I've used. If you got when you need a reactor that's going to tumble, and the stuff has to tumble. And like I say, if you don't have enough of it in there, if your phosphate tank is dropping, you don't have a big enough reactor. I know you see the picture of mine. I bought one reactor, and then bought a second reactor, and then bought a third reactor. So I got 3 reactors on these tanks. So phosphates are really, especially if you want to keep SPS, you got to keep that phosphates down to 0 if you can. It's pretty hard to do if you're bad and feed your fish too much like I do.
And when you're talking about the medium flow, are you controlling that more through the size pump that you have pushing the water into that to make it?
Right now, a lot of reactors require a pump to tumble, but I have big enough pumps on my tanks that I just teed off on my circulation pumps, and I got a valve there that I think you see the pictures. You can see I got valves on there. You don't want too much tumble, but you got to have it tumbling. If you don't, especially on the GFO, it'll block up on you, and it'll be like a brick in there if you don't have it tumbling very well.
Are you the gentleman with the 2 700-gallon tanks?
Pardon?
Are you the gentleman with the 2 700-gallon
Yeah.
tanks? Are they linked together or 2 separate systems?
No, I have 2 separate systems, but I have, along with the 700-gallon tank, I have about 400 gallons more of other tanks attached to each one of them. So I think both systems are about 1,200 gallons, 1,200 gallons.
What's a typical maintenance schedule for you on your tanks?
Morning till night. I like what they do. Some days I can spend a couple hours out there just working on the stuff, and maybe have 5-10 minutes where I can sit back and I can actually look at the tanks for a while. So,
Do you use controllers or anything to automate them?
no, I just have my light controllers. That's the only thing I have, and I've just changed out to the LEDs mostly. So I'm interested in seeing how that works out.
What about water changes on a tank that size?
I try to do 200 gallons the first of the month, and then maybe around the middle of the month, another 100 gallons.
What kind of salt you use?
Yeah, do you have a salt that you find that you like better than others?
I mostly just use the what's that in the orange bucket? I use two different salts, and because different salts you have to look on the different things. Different ones are stronger on different things, and I use two different salts, and I go like half and half.
Okay.
But you got to look to that. There's a lot of difference in the salts. I mean, you got to, depending on which tank, your fish or coral, you got to be careful because some things they just don't. They don't do everything you want them to, and you don't. If they say 200 gallons in a box, you ain't gonna get 200 gallons either. So, I think they mean 200 gallons at 1.5 or something like that.
I was just gonna say this bread is kind of useless without pigs. So
I was just talking to Kat here a minute ago. I need to learn how to use a camera. I've got pictures from I just taken a tank, but I really don't have a good camera, and but I do have to take some. There are some of the different reactors going around. Yeah. And if you have any questions on them, I can explain them to you.
So you say you use nitrate or denitrate?
Nitrate reactor. And and what it is it's almost like a phosphate reactor. It's the same type of reactor, and I put sulfur and borate. I mean, the same thing you would put in just a calcium reactor, only the big pellets. And there is it creates a bacteria that eats the nitrate stuff.
Does it stink? Does yours stink?
Yeah.
See, that's what I was.
But I mean, I don't smell it unless I'm cleaning it. Every so often you have to clean it, and it's not real pleasant enough.
But it doesn't like your
No.
house or yours is outside.
That's outside.
I was using one of those denitrate. That thing was stinking. I know.
I don't have that problem.
No, like she don't like it.
But it's also, if you start smelling it, it's usually because you're running your flow through too fast.
Too fast?
Yes. You need to slow the flow down. If you're getting a sulfur smell, that's because your water's going through too fast, which isn't giving the bacteria enough time to
Slow that drip down.
yeah.
And I'll usually get a sulfur smell when you clean it out and you first turn it on.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll smell it then, but
But I was just mine comes with mild balls.
yeah. I do have a few biology balls around.
But yeah, when I did mine, it was literally a drip coming out. And it just takes a while to get going, but even with just the drip, it made a difference. But that, yeah, I'd get the sulfur on my cranks. It opened the flusher or anything. Sulfur.
You still use yours? You
No.
still yours? No. Yeah,
That's
that's
stuff using the nitrate reactor.
And I am at Reeftopia. Anybody, you come up with more questions on me, email me. I'll be glad to answer anything I can for y'all. If you want to try to pick up some more, but I highly recommend it, especially if you're going to keep a reef tank. You really need to have reactors to really keep your water. Yeah. Maybe not as good as what these guys have, but then again.
You post that when you get home. Find out the name of that thing.
Okay, yeah. In fact, I highly recommend to all y'all, especially if you're just getting into it. They have tank tours, usually 2 or 3 a year, and invariably most of the stuff I have on my tank I've gotten from other people, and that was the last tank tour that I got that. I saw somebody had that. I've always had trouble with getting my DKH, and I've had that on 3 months now, and my DKH says that's like I almost forget to check it now because it ain't moved since the first week that I put it on. So if you've had trouble with DKH before, to me that's really a good.
I like to know I can't see the picture.
And you can't buy that at any any of the big stores or anything, salt stores. That actually is from a water pond system that this guy had. I told him, well, I've never seen that, and I look online for all kind of equipment. I said, I've never seen that, but you actually buy that from a plant store. Anybody else?
Is there an alternative to the sulfur?
As far as a nitrate reactor, there are some people that have screens that they run water over that grows bacteria on it and everything. And I had never tried it myself, and I don't know that I got a place to actually do that too. But they got algae screens that they grow in that full of nitrates. I think probably a good way, like Kat does, is she's got all that thing, grasses and stuff in hers. I mean, not to mention she has a beautiful tank. But,
Yeah, I'm highly allergic to sulfur, so that's out there.
oh, okay, yeah. Well,
Oh, you mean to put in the reactor
Even the
itself?
smell.
yeah, you know, a good sump full of plants and stuff and everything that would work really. Now, I have to have a nitrate reactor because I got a big fish load, a big bio load, and so you know I have to have a lot of help along with that. If you don't get too big a fish load, you don't feed too much, you might get by with that one.
What type of heater are you running in those big tanks?
I haven't run a heater as of.
You haven't ran heaters?
I've never run a heater in my tanks now. I bought some here a while back, but I bought the titanium because I've heard too many people having heaters break and you don't have to worry about them breaking. I've got them, so if I ever have a...
You just regulate the room itself, right?
Yeah, I just heat the room. You got two 1,200 gallon systems. It's like last night in Conroe, it was 27 degrees, I think they said, 27 or 29 degrees. And when I went to bed, my tank was 80 degrees, and when I got up the next morning, it was 79 degrees. And I didn't have no heat in the building. I didn't even have the building heated or nothing. So when you're running 1,200 gallons, the temperature doesn't change too really drastically. Now, if it's going to stay cold for 2 or 3 days in a row or something like that, then I got heaters in there I turn on and heat the building under that.
Okay.
But yeah, don't buy none of the glass ones. That's my advice, because I've heard of too many people losing everything in their tank because their heater busted. And another thing you want to do too is you'd be better off getting 2 smaller heaters than 1 big one, because if one malfunctions, then if the tank warms up, the other one quits working because it's reading that the tank is too warm. So you don't want one heater that's going to get the tank so hot that it's going to boil your fish and your corals.
Right.
Thank you very much, David.
Thanks, Evan.